for the fourth quarter educational webinar for Crain and Woolley clients. Thank you for taking the time to be with us tonight. Again, just a couple of reminders: find some place quiet to listen and silence your phones. And depending on if you are on a computer or a mobile device, if you're on a computer, the chat box and the handouts are in your upper right-hand corner. If you're on a mobile device, like a mobile phone, the chat box will be at the bottom of your screen, and so will the handouts tab. So please feel free to click over there to the handouts to download the materials for today and enter any questions in the chat box. Again, just a reminder, this is general information only. We can't get into specifics about how specific bills will interact with your specific situation. If you have very specific questions, you can definitely call us to set up a consultation. This evening, Justin Crain, our managing partner, is going to be our speaker, and we are looking forward to hearing what he has to say about an overview of the legislative activities. And then I know a lot of you are interested in the 2023 IRS updates. So with no further ado, I'm going to mute myself and turn it over to Justin.
Thanks, Troy. Yeah, so I was checking out here on the handouts tab. See about 23% of you or so are downloading those. Take a look through. Was talking to Joy just before we started. There were 44 laws that were actually passed since October up to yesterday, when I cut off and kind of ran the last report and looked through the last laws that passed. As far as which laws actually relate to things like taxes and estates, um, not really a lot going on as far as actual direct relation. I pulled out three that were kind of a stretch so that I could have some actual updates. But if you actually started reading through the whole list, and it's the handout that says fourth quarter laws passed, you would see a lot of laws that were doing things. It seems like a lot of this happens where they're naming post offices, naming VA facilities. They're doing a lot of things. That there was even a bill I was just looking at again right before we started, where they were talking about how we're going to start monitoring some artificial intelligence. So there's some stuff going on, but this update is about, is there anything that's going to happen with our taxes or our estates? And so what you see on the slide here in front of you are three that I pulled out that have a little bit of relation to the types of work that we do. The first one is that HR 7846, which is titled Veterans Compensation Cost of Living Adjustment Act of 2022. And the act requires the Department of Veteran Affairs to increase the amounts payable for things like wartime disability compensation. There's additional compensation in there for dependents. There's things like clothing allowance for certain disabled veterans. There's dependency and indemnity compensation for surviving spouses and children. And they're doing things like increasing the amounts for VA benefits by the same percentage as the cost of living benefits increase that they did for Social Security recipients. And that's effective December 1st of this year, so just a few days ago. And then the act is requiring the VA to publish the amounts payable in the Federal Register for the increases. And it's authorizing the VA to make similar adjustments to the rates of disability compensation payable to people who have not received compensation for like service-connected disabilities or death. And so it's not something that we talk with everybody on, because not everybody is qualified for those types of benefits, but it does relate to estates, to assets, to those types of financial benefits that some of you may qualify for. The second one you'll see there is the S1098, the Joint Consolidation Separation Act. And as some of you, it may be hard for people to not be aware, are aware, there's been a lot of talk and some things going on with things like student loans. This is one of the actual laws that were passed that relate to student loans. And it's very, very specific. I would think that this might even surprise people, because it's not really anything to do with forgiving student loans. That really wasn't a law. But the actual law here is that it is allowing people, when they were, for example, two borrowers who maybe did a consolidation loan, where maybe you were a married couple and you decided to do a consolidation loan, you got like a different lender to consolidate your loan, but you did it like jointly. It's actually allowing borrowers who previously received a joint consolidation loan for federal student loan debt to submit an application to sever their consolidated loan into like two separate loans. So one borrower could, for example, submit a separate application, and they're basically wording it where it says maybe it was the event where an individual experienced domestic or economic abuse, maybe there was a divorce, and they're actually now putting together in the law a way for the person to maybe separate from that joint loan with someone, which wasn't directly in the law, believe it or not, until this was passed. And so the other individual borrower would become solely liable for their remaining balance on the joint consolidation loan. And so this might, for example, again, apply to somebody who maybe was married and later divorced, or perhaps somebody who in some other circumstance had a joint consolidation loan. So I thought that was interesting, something I'll have to look into more. I feel like this is very specific, so this may or may not apply to very many situations, but it would be helpful if it does apply to you. And then this one was interesting to me, and again, kind of a stretch, but it does apply to assets, the S169 Arts Act. For those of you that have maybe copyrights and you're putting together intellectual property, this act is directing the Copyright Office to waive copyright registration fees, which honestly aren't super high, but hey, anything that you can get a discount on is a good deal. It says that the Copyright Registration Office is supposed to waive the fees for works that win certain competitions sponsored by the Congressional Institute or established by Congress. So you can qualify for the fee waiver, and the copyright registration application then has to be filed within a certain specified time frame, and then the Copyright Office can waive the fees for qualifying work. And apparently there's some provisions in there where you can qualify even if the application is outside of the time frame. So again, you'd have to win certain competitions, and then you don't have to pay fees to register your work. Very, very specific, but there you are on a law that was passed here just in the last 3 months. If you read through all the rest of the laws, they just don't relate to taxes or estates. You may find some of them interesting, but they just really aren't related to the topics that we're covering here. The other piece that you may find interesting, and if you download the IRS, it's titled on our handout IRS code, but what it actually is a document that's called the Revenue Procedure 2022-38. This is the document that the IRS sent out here just recently, where they tell us all of the IRS annual adjustments for 2023. And there's some slides here that you guys can take a look at if you want to read like the actual language, the way that the IRS, I don't know why anybody really wants to read that, but the way the IRS puts it out, that's actually the download that you can read. But here's some of the tax items I think that are of the greatest interest probably to the largest number of people. Things like the standard deduction for married couples filing in 2023. It is increasing to $27,700. That is up $1,800 from 2022. So for single taxpayers and married individuals filing separately, the standard deduction is going to $13,850, which is up $900. For head of households, it's going to be $20,800, which is up $1,400 from 2022. We also have things like our marginal rates for 2023. The actual top rate, it stays the same, so the 37% rate. And in the income brackets are 578,125, or if you're married, filing jointly, the bracket is 693,750. And then you can see the other brackets there below for the different marginal rates, the 35, 32, 24, 22, 12, and the lowest rate, which is 10%. And you can see the individual and the joint filing brackets. It's also in the IRS code download. It's just written with all the things. We're summarizing in these slides here, all the things that you can find out that happened. Estate tax. So the estates of decedents who died during 2023, the exclusion went up. It is now $12,920,000. And as a reminder, that is per spouse. So if you're married, you get to double that. And I didn't do this math. I gotta start memorizing a new number to tell everybody all year long. So if you double that number, that is $25,840,000. So you got to leave more than that, right? Or more than, as an individual, more than $12,920,000 for the estate tax to start applying after death. That is up from $12,060,000 for people who die in 2022. So that's an increase. And then the annual gift tax exclusion, not to be confused with the lifetime gift tax exclusion, but the annual gift tax exclusion is increasing to $17,000 in 2023, which is up from $16,000, which it was in 2022. So you can, as an individual like myself, can give to another individual $17,000. You don't have to report it. It's excluded. You can do that every single year. That's the annual gift tax exclusion. And then I thought that kind of in line with these types of brackets and rates, capital gains is a thing I get asked about all the time. So this is your 2023 long-term capital gains rates and brackets. You can take a look there. I won't read those off to you, but I'll let you take a look at them here for just a moment. And so those are the updates. I would recommend to take a look. We send out our newsletter, so everybody who got the invitation to come to this webinar would get our newsletters as they come out. Any laws that actually pass here in the upcoming quarter, all the way up until we have our next webinar that relate to taxes, relate to estates. If anything actually happens before we have the next webinar, we'll put it into the newsletter. So take a look at those. If you have any questions, happy to answer those here tonight. But no actual big changes yet. The couple things that happened here, just like a new law passed today, don't relate to estates or taxes. So nothing yet with some of the current Congress. If you have any questions, feel free to type it in the chat box. I wasn't even on the right tab, so let me look over here and see if we've got anything. I see a couple chats here. Brian, thanks for the summary. Yeah, thanks, Brian. We'll give a couple more minutes if anybody else has any comments, and if not, be on the lookout for those updates. I'm usually of the opinion that no changes are at least better than negative changes, right? So at least we know what's going on right now, and all the changes so far are kind of increases, sort of positive, right? Richard, yeah, thank you. Appreciate the comment. All right. If anybody needs to contact us directly, needs to set up any consultation for specific questions, you've got our contact information here on the slide, the phone number and the email that you can contact us at. Feel free to contact us. We'd be happy to set up and get any specific questions, answers, education updates, anything that you'd need for your specific situation. Candy, appreciate the Merry Christmas. Yeah, plan on finding some time to relax. Same to you. I appreciate the comment. All right, everybody. Appreciate your time. Thanks, everybody.